Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Today we will discuss only about the tragedy of the commons. How do we manage resources that seems to belong to everyone? Meaning a resource that doesn't really spell out who owns it, doesn't have any boundary. For example, natural food reserve, energy resources like fossil fuel, a clean environment that we are enjoying today, clean air, water that are currently a challenge for Lembah Kelang residents, and soil. All of those belong to everyone and yet are protected by no one. Today, protecting such a common pool of resources has become a challenge for all of us, not only in the local scale, but on a national and global challenge as well. In the 1960s, ecologist Garrett Hardin suggested and invoked the analogy of a commons in support of his thesis that as human population increase, there would be increasing pressure on finite resources at both the local and particularly the global level, with the inevitable result of over-exploitation and ruin that will destroy everything. He termed this phenomenon as the tragedy of the commons. More specifically, this phrase means that an increase in human population creates an increased strain on limited resources, which jeopardizes sustainability. The tragedy of the commons developed in this way. Have a look at the picture on the left. Imagine a pasture, a field of grass open to everyone. It is to be expected that each herdsman that have their cattle or their lambs, in this picture it's lamb, right? So it is to be expected that each lamb herdsman will try to keep as many of lamb as possible on the commons in order to increase their revenue. Such an arrangement may work reasonably satisfactorily for centuries, because the number of the lamb being herds on the land is well below the carrying capacity of the field of grass, meaning that the number of the lamb still doesn't exceed the carrying capacity of the field of grass. Finally, however, comes the day that is when tragedy happens, where more herdsmen are coming, more industries that would like to rear lamb or cattle on the field of grass. So they maximize the number of lamb in order to increase their gain. Explicitly or implicitly, more or less consciously, everyone will start be asking, if I add another lamb into the field, it won't give me any negative effect. So just imagine that positive and negative increment. Let's say if you increase one lamb in the grass field, then your own you will increase your revenue by +1. So you receive +1. If you add 2 lambs, then you receive +2. But then the negative effect, where the water will be less, the grass will be less, the negative one, let's say, for example, if you add one lamp, it will be negative 1 to the grass, the amount of grass, and negative 1 to the amount of water. Let's say there is a stream of river there. But the negative 1 to the grass and to the water are being shared by everyone. Not only for you, but the revenue, you receive it plus 1. So in economy, this means you are gaining. So it's good for you. But it's not good for everyone, but the negative 2 from less water and less grass are being divided to everyone that are using that green field. So rationally, this increase your revenue. Anyway, this is the tragedy. Tragedy of the commons. So it appears in the problems of pollution. Here is not a problem of taking something from the commons, but to contribute to pollution, putting more sewage, chemical, radioactive, heat waste into the water, noxious and dangerous fume into the air. It's not really about taking the grass, but then the animal, when the animal has to excrete their excretion, so they will pollute the water. They will use and if you use antibiotic and that stuff, there are a lot to be discussed about that. But this is true for everyone, so we are locked into a system of fouling our own nest, meaning we are destroying our own place. So, if you imagine this in the scale of climate change, it is the same. The atmosphere belongs to everyone. But then each of us are using it, breathing it, and also using the air for our living, but then releases pollution. I may produce pollution from my car and occasionally from barbecue. But some other people, some industries, they are producing pollution at a very large scale because they think that the negative effect will be shared all among us. So you can see on the picture on the left, you can see use of the commons is below the carrying capacity of the land. All users benefit. Means you can have revenue from the land and you can also use the field. But sooner or later, showed by the middle picture, if one or more users increase the use of the commons beyond its carrying capacity, the commons become degraded. The cost of the degradation is incurred by all users. Means all users will incur. But it doesn't really reflect directly to only you. Same like the atmosphere. So at the end, unless the environmental costs are accounted and addressed in land use practices, eventually the land will be unable to support activity. The land will be barren. And nobody can benefit for it. Think about it in relate to the atmosphere and the climate change. And we will discuss this. Thank you. The tragedy of the commons.